Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature, the mysterious whale sharks of the Galapagos. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Josy Cardoso and special guest Sofia Green, a researcher at the Galapagos Whale Shark Project. It is such a pleasure to have you both with us today. Josy, I'm going to hand things off to you.
Thank you, Kendall. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in another amazing webinar done by NatHab Adventures. And today I'm very pleased and happy and excited to have Sofia Green here with us. And I will just shut down my camera as well because of the slow internet. And I'm glad that Sophie was able to accept to participate in this webinar because she's the expert of the whale sharks in the Galapagos. So Sofia Green Iturralde was born in Quito, Ecuador, and grew up alternating life between Galapagos and mainland Ecuador. She has a degree in conservation biology and equestrian science. Upon graduation, she returned to the Galapagos Islands to work on its conservation. She was part of the professional development courses of the naturalist guides and diving guides of the archipelago with the San Francisco University of Quito. She also worked at the Charles Darwin Foundation for 3 years, in which she participated in the project of marine invasive species, marine ecological monitoring of the health of the Galapagos Marine Reserve, the study of the impact of boats on sea turtles and coastal cleanings of Galapagos, and she's currently working as a researcher in the Galapagos Whale Shark Project, and it's completing an international postgraduate degree in marine biological resources with the University of Ghent. So Sophie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you to you and to Natural Habitat Adventures for providing this platform so I can talk to all of you today. It is a pleasure to be here. So let's get into it. Whale sharks are the largest fish in the ocean, and yet they are also the greatest mysteries of our ocean. So why is it that this great animal that we all love seeing underwater is so difficult to understand, so difficult to know? Let's get to know a little bit about it.
That's great.
Yeah,
Sophie,
go ahead.
Thank you. Just let me tell the people that the Galapagos Whale Shark Project is an independent project that works in collaboration with the Galapagos National Park. It was founded in 2011 and has since been running early expeditions to the far north islands of the Galapagos to uncover the secrets of the whale sharks that right now you're going to tell us. So Sophie, Thank you. Let's continue.
Thanks, Josy. Exactly. So the Galapagos Whale Shark Project began in 2011 because it wasn't until the late 1900s when people realized that these animals aggregated around the islands, and they didn't exactly know anything about them. They started seeing these giant whale sharks in the far northern islands of the Galapagos archipelago, but did not know anything more about them. So my dad, as a naturalist guide and dive guide of the island, started asking questions and realized nothing was known about them. That's when in 2011, my dad, Jonathan Richard Green, and Dr. Alex Hearn created this amazing project to study whale sharks in the Galapagos Islands. Since its creation, the team has grown quite a bit, and we have a team of scientists from around the world. We have people from New Zealand and Germany and Switzerland and Ecuador and the UK, Spain, Japan, all collaborating in this amazing project.
Thank you, Sophie. So you have a strong connection with the Galapagos Islands. One of the reasons is because your dad was also a naturalist guide, actually one of the best ones here in the Galapagos. Plus, he has this love for the underwater world, and he wanted to know more about whale sharks. So that's why the project started. When did you realize you wanted to be a biologist and join your father's project?
So that's a really good question. I feel like it all began at home, for sure, definitely with my dad as a naturalist guide, but also as my mom as a naturalist guide, and both of them as scientists. The talk about conservation of the Galapagos Islands was always very common just at our dinner table. So I grew up feeling that I should be a part of this conservation of this amazing place. And in 2017, after graduating from university with a conservation biology degree, I moved to the islands and I was working on a project educating the naturalist guides on the islands. And an expedition came up in September of 2017 for the Galapagos Whale Shark Project. And there was a space left on board. So my dad said, hey, like, would you be able to join? Would you be able to take a break and come with us? And I absolutely, like, it was a dream come true, right? And once I made it up there, I started learning the ropes about the project. But most importantly, I learned how important this kind of research is for conservation measures to take place. So after that, I became absolutely hooked with the project and have been working with them since. And I am currently now carrying out my master's thesis investigation on these animals and trying to figure out how they navigate, which is one of the major questions that nobody really understands, and if the underlying bathymetry has anything to do with this.
That's great. Of course, having two naturalist guides at home since you are little, definitely the passion for nature sure grew up since the very beginning. So whale sharks are the biggest sharks in the ocean. And one of the most amazing part is that we picture sharks with teeth and being this bad guy of Jaws, the famous movie. But these ones are totally different. They lack of teeth. So this picture is very interesting to start. Can you tell us what we know, like things that we only know about the whale sharks, like maybe important facts, distribution and aggregation?
Absolutely. So the whale shark is actually a shark very different from what we believe and perceive as shark from what we see in the media. And this is the whale shark. Its scientific classification, its scientific name is Rhynchodontypus, and it is actually the only member of the Rhynchodontidae family. We know very little about them. As I mentioned, they're a very big mystery. What we do know about them is that they grow up to 18 meters in length and can weigh up to 20 tons in weight. This is like seeing a bus underwater, like it's massive. Then, as you mentioned, Josy, they don't have the teeth that we usually picture sharks having. However, they do have hundreds and hundreds of rows of teeth, and they can be deadly. That is, if you're plankton. And they only eat plankton, fish larvae, coral eggs, and small fish by filtration. And they can filtrate massive amounts of all this type of food. So that's their general feeding behavior. And we know that they're ovoviviparous, which means that they give birth to live young. They're not like a lot of sharks which lay eggs. They actually give birth to live young, which is very interesting, and we'll talk more about this. We do know their distribution, and we know that they can dive to at least 1,928 meters of depth. And I say at least because of a very important factor, which I'll mention to you as well. So going into their distribution, well, whale sharks are found in all oceans of our planet, usually between like tropical and temperate waters, between 35 degrees north to 40 degrees south. And they are a wonderful shark to study if you dislike colder waters like myself. Whale sharks like being in water temperatures ranging from 15 degrees to 30 degrees Celsius, but actually their personal preference is around 24, 25, 26 degrees and even higher. So they are definitely my choice of shark to study for that matter. And another interesting thing that we know about whale sharks are their aggregations on a global level. So we don't know where they spend their the entire year, but we do know that they aggregate in coastal sites for feeding purposes. And then the rest of the time, they're actually known as a solitary pelagic species.
Oh, thank you. But I think that's my type of animal as well to share the water with, right? That warm temperature, I just love that. I can imagine you also not having any issue with getting so cold while you're doing your job, diving, tagging them, and study them. That's amazing. So as you explain us, there are different spots in the world where we can find them. But why Galapagos is one of the best spots to carry this project with the whale shark, Sofia?
So Galapagos has a very unique population of whale sharks, a population of whale sharks that are not found anywhere else in the world. Here we see massive adult females that are not spotted anywhere else in the world. You see on this map, the aggregations that you see are mostly made up of juveniles and males. But where in the world are the adult females? Only in the Galapagos do we actually get a majority of adult females. Here we can see a little bit about why they're found in the far northern islands of the archipelago. You can see off of this SST sea surface temperature map that the far northern islands of the archipelago are generally warmer, and that's where we usually find them between June and December. And in these waters, the temperature ranges between 24, 25, 26, so it's pretty wonderful. But they're also very, very close to cooler waters, which bring in productivity and make it a good area for feeding purposes as well. Although in the Galapagos, we actually don't see them feeding. So that's another interesting question to answer. Here we see a little bit about the current movements. We have a hot current that comes in from the north of, into the north of the archipelago, the Panama Current. And then we have two very, very cold currents that come in, one from the south, going up through the coast of South America, the Humboldt Current. And then we have the Cromwell Current coming in from the west of the archipelago. And both are very cold water currents that bring in a lot of nutrients. So it's an excellent place for these animals to be, actually. And it is also a marine reserve created in 1998. So it provides an area of study in a marine protected area. So it's good to see how they are like, what the difference is between them inside a marine protected area and the threats that they face out of marine protected areas. And this is a World Heritage Site, so it's actually a very important site to study these animals for our entire world. A little bit about our study sites. This is Darwin Arch. This is where we go every year to study these whale sharks, to dive at these places, and it is a fantastic place. You see, Darwin Arch is a very open ocean pelagic site. As you see on this map, Darwin Arch is that little figure off of Darwin Islands that you can see off to the right. And I want you all to take a look at how the arch is placed right at a point where there's very, very shallow land for a tiny bit of it. So we have like 15 meters, 20 meters, 30-meter drop-offs. And then suddenly it goes from 40 meters to thousands of meters immediately. And because whale sharks, especially adult whale sharks, are known to be pelagic animals, this is an amazing spot to find them at. So yeah, there's a lot that we don't know about them and a lot that we want to discover about them. So here's what we don't know about whale sharks. And I feel as the more questions we ask, the more questions we actually end up having instead of the other way around. So what we don't know specifically is we don't know their global population, their size and structure. We are not sure about where they're reproducing. We don't know where they give birth, where the pups live between 3 and 5 years old. Nobody sees them during this time of their lifespan. And we don't really understand their migratory routes or where they feed year-round yet.
So, Sophie, we know basically basic facts about the whale sharks. And as you mentioned, more you ask, more you realize that we don't know. So there is a lot of intriguing facts that we don't know, like the ones that you just mentioned. So then the project, what exactly the project is researching about the whale sharks?
So that is a very good question. Specifically, the Galapagos Whale Shark Project is studying the gender of the whale sharks that pass by the islands. We're doing photo ID. We're tracking them through satellite tracking. We're doing ultrasounds, DNA sampling, bone sampling, and health research and impact of tourism, basically. So for sex determination, we have discovered that 99% of the whale sharks that pass by the Galapagos are adult females. And as I mentioned earlier, this is unique to the world. Maybe in other sites where they do see adult females, maybe the distribution is like 50% males, 50% females, and a couple other sites like Santa Elena or Saudi Arabia. But the only place where we see mostly females is in the Galapagos, which makes it a very interesting study site. And then here I can show you how we differentiate between males and females of whale sharks. Basically, it's very easy. Males have two giant claspers that stick out besides their pelvic fins, and females lack these, just have an open cloaca. Next, we're carrying out photo ID, and what this means is we are taking photos of the spot patterns of the sides of the whale sharks to be able to identify each of these as an individual. So this works a bit like your fingerprints. So why we do this is to know a bit of like capture recapture, so to know if we see the same individuals every year, how often they're here. So we want to know a bit about their site fidelity. Maybe if we do see them again, how much have they grown since the last time we saw them? So it provides a little bit about their population dynamics. And it works the same way as it would with the whisker spot patterns of a polar bear or the prints of a cheetah skin. And basically, this is the area that we use between their fifth gill and their posterior pectoral. That little square is unique to every single individual and what we use to identify them. In the Galapagos, we have already identified over 600 new individuals since the start of the project. And this work has definitely not been done just by the scientists. We could not do this without the help of our naturalist guides and citizens. So we have actually trained a little army of naturalist guides, dive guides, that are going out, that are the ones that are in these study sites frequently, way more frequently than we ever could be, that are taking photos, and not only that, but talking to their passengers about matters like these and getting them interested into projects that, and showing them that absolutely everyone can contribute to science. So by adding these, you're actually helping us a lot and helping us protect these animals quite a bit. So something interesting that came out of this from the project is this amazing 12-year resighting. This whale shark that we saw in 2007, actually it was a diver, a citizen, that uploaded this photo in 2007, was then spotted again by one of our researchers in 2019. And that is just amazing. Just to know that this whale shark had survived the 2 years with all the threats that they faced, to know that she's back in the archipelago was absolutely fantastic. And what was unfortunate of this was that when we saw her in 2019, we estimated her to be around 13 meters long. However, the 2007 resighting had no size estimation, which we would have loved to be able to know more or less how much she could have grown during this time of the year. But this is a little bit about why we do this and what it serves for. Next, we're working on satellite tracking, so using these little tags for our tracking of them. So technology has changed quite a bit since the start of the project. And in 2011, up through almost a couple years ago, all of the tags that we were using were toad tags. So we were using this spot 5, this splash toad, and this mini pat toad that you can see first. And all of these have different purposes. So the spots that we use are to track their horizontal behavior. The mini pats that we use are to track their diving behavior, understand a little bit more about their vertical movements. And the splash tags, toad tags, are actually, they can actually do both, but are quite a bit more expensive. So luckily, technology has been developing quite a bit the last couple of years, and we've been able to move into these fin mount versions of these same tags. And why this matters is for various reasons. One, the negative image that it portrayed in the media, the way that we used to tag them before was by using a Cressy pressure gun. So even though we as researchers knew we weren't hurting whale sharks by tagging and putting these little anchors in through the pressure gun, it just gives a wrong image for the researchers to be, you know, shooting something into the animals. So we definitely did not want to give off this image. Although, as a fun fact, I can tell you whale sharks have the thickest skin in the animal kingdom. They have 30 centimeters of only epidermis. So basically putting in these little anchors, it was no more than a piercing for any of us, basically, probably even less. But the other problem we faced with these tags was the fact that we had a high percentage of loss. So these tags would go right by the side of the whale shark, and they looked very attractive and yummy to other shark species and very big fish, which would then target them and rip them out. So we would lose these tags in the matter of sometimes days, which is something we cannot afford, considering that each one of these costs between 2,000 to maybe 5,000 US dollars. So definitely not something that we can afford to lose. Over time, technology has changed, and now we are getting way longer tracking. Our battery life is longer, and this methodology of fin clamp tagging is a lot less invasive and a lot more effective. And in the past 10 years, the project has been able to tag 100+ whale sharks, and now we are getting beautiful tracks from these sharks and understanding their movement patterns quite a bit more. Here, I want to see if this clip will play for you. Let me double check. So I'd love to show you this tagging. The technology does not always collaborate. Are you able to see the video?
It's loading, yes. There it goes.
Super. So here you will see a researcher from the Galapagos Whale Shark Project tagging a whale shark, a female adult whale shark in the Galapagos Islands with one of these fin clamps. That tagging takes less than 30 seconds on average. Absolutely non-invasive. The whale sharks usually don't even realize we're there. And in the meantime, our other teammates are taking photo ID. Presumably she already took a photo of the right side, swims over to the left side, takes a shot, and there we go. There's our whale shark tagged and photo ID'd in less than a minute. So from all of this tagging, what we've been able to achieve is these very, very bundled up maps. So as you can see here, our whale sharks after leaving Galapagos go in pretty much any direction. We're trying to understand what their migration movements are, what drives these movements, but they don't make it easy on us. They know this is what gives us a job, so they're making sure that we keep our job and just keep asking ourselves more questions about what drives them to move in these ways. So these are all the tracks that we've gotten from them from 2011 to 2018. And besides the tagging that we've been doing with this, with these other tags, we now have a very interesting new methodology of tagging, where in 2018, a version of this deep tag developed by the Georgia Aquarium and IC Solutions, they brought this tag over for an experimental trial to the Galapagos Islands. And this tag, what it does is it can support pressures to more than 4,000 meters depth. So if you'll remember earlier on in the presentation, I told you a little bit about their diving behavior and the fact that we know that they dive to at least 1,928 meters depth. However, we know that this is only the limit of what we know due to technological limits. You see, this is where the tag that we use usually implodes from the pressure of the ocean depth. However, these tags that would be able to withstand pressures up to 4,000, maybe even up to 6,000 meter depths are very exciting to know the actual range of diving for whale sharks. So here we tried it, and unfortunately, even though the tag had been developed very closely, as is with prototypes, these did not function yet, but we hope to continue using new prototypes of this one to see how deep they can go exactly and what they're doing in those depths. So next, we are running ultrasounds on whale sharks in the Galapagos Islands. Because I mentioned that the whale sharks that we mostly see in the islands are 99% female, and the females that we see tend to have this large distended abdomen. So you can see that here in this photo. So what could this mean? We've been asking ourselves, like, why do we only see the females? Why are these females not sighted anywhere else? Well, we believe that they could be pregnant and coming to birth somewhere close to the islands or on the Galapagos platform. What we know about whale shark reproduction so far comes from a whale shark that was caught off of Taiwan in 1995, and it was crazy what they found. When they opened up this whale shark, they found that she had 304 fetuses inside. And when they did a DNA analysis of 29 of these fetuses, they discovered that they were all fathered by the same male, which would definitely explain why we rarely see the females and male adults anywhere in the ocean together. If they only have to meet once to produce 300 sharks, there's no real reason for meeting very often.
Sophie, and also it's incredible that they can have those many fetuses inside. How many of them you think they really survive, or why they have so many babies?
So that's a very good question, Josy. I feel like the reason why they would need to have this amount of fetuses inside at a time would be because not a very high percentage of these do survive. But there's actually another very interesting factor about the fetuses that they found inside this whale shark, is that all of these were at different stages of development, which is incredible. Some were still in egg cases, while others were already 60 centimeters and pretty much ready to be free swimming baby whale sharks. So what this suggests is that whale sharks not only have the ability to have this amount of fetuses from one single male, but they might be able to store the semen of the male and slowly start fertilizing their eggs to lift the likelihood of survival, to raise the likelihood of survival of this species. So by having pups at different stages of development, maybe they can birth in different areas and at different times, giving them a higher likelihood of survival.
That's fascinating, and how wise nature happens to be. I find fascinating that you can do ultrasounds, that technology has arrived that far in order to be able to perform that in minutes underwater and moving, the shark moving, you trying to be close to the shark. So doing the ultrasounds to the female whale sharks that swim in our marine reserve, what do you expect to find with this? And also, are any other researchers also performing ultrasound in other parts of the world, Sofia?
So ultrasounds are being performed in other parts of the world, but only in aquarium situations. So they're being performed in the Georgia Aquarium, they're being performed in the Okinawa Churashima Aquarium, but we are the only project doing this in a wildlife situation, which is no easy feat, let me tell you. So the way this is done is we're working in collaboration with amazing scientists from the Okinawa Churashima Foundation from Japan. And what they do is they bring this incredibly heightened ultrasound, which you can see our researcher here, trying to reach the whale shark in time, turn the ultrasound on, and then you carry around this 17-kilogram briefcase, which is actually the ultrasound. So he's trying to do all of this at the same time, which is definitely not an easy feat. However, it's definitely exciting, and the reason we're doing it is to see if the whale sharks in the Galapagos are pregnant. And this first began in 2017. That was the first year that they traveled to the Galapagos to work alongside the Galapagos Whale Shark Project. And the first season was very interesting. So I'll tell you a little story about it. When they first arrived, it happened to be a very cold year. 2017 was a very cold year. So they went diving, and day after day, no whale sharks were showing up. And this is a site where we tend to see them pretty much daily every year during June and December. And no whale sharks were showing up, no whale sharks were showing up. When finally on the fifth day, you know, after diving 3 times a day in very cold water, somebody spots a whale shark and everyone shakes a maraca, everyone's super excited, starts swimming towards the whale shark to get the job done. Rui turns on his ultrasound, and as they approach the whale shark, they realize it's an adult male. And what are the chances? Considering that 99% of the whale sharks we encounter in the Galapagos are female, it was very, very unlikely that the first whale shark that they would ultrasound would actually be an adult male. But unfortunately, this is what happened. They still carried out the ultrasound, and then a few days later, we were able to test it out on some females. Unfortunately, this year they realized that because whale shark skin is so incredibly thick, the ultrasound strength was still not strong enough to penetrate that amount of skin and also inside the organs. So that is why our teammates returned in 2018 when we ran the ultrasounds again. And this time we discovered something very, very interesting. So I see this, and I do not see more than just gray lines. However, we're very lucky to have these amazing scientists from the Okinawa Churashima Foundation, and Rui and Kyomi were able to decipher these out for us. So we were not able to see pups in egg cases or free swimming pups yet, but what they were able to identify is fully developed follicles inside the ovaries of the female whale sharks, demonstrating that these whale sharks are actually ready to reproduce. So this is definitely an ongoing project. We will continue doing these ultrasounds to see if we are able to at some point spot pups, or then move on to the next hypothesis as to why these whale sharks are in this area. Alongside everything else we're doing, we're also doing some DNA sampling. And the main goal for this is to understand exactly this, you know, where they're reproducing, where they're giving birth, who the baby's daddy is, basically. So it's a bit of a search, global search of who's connected to who. And what we've seen from the DNA studies is that there is very low genetic deviation. So we're trying to understand if there's low genetic deviation. It means that all these different subpopulations are actually reproducing somewhere in the world, but where they're meeting, we don't actually know. The two places where we see adult males and adult females aggregate are in Saudi Arabia and off of Santa Elena in the middle of the Atlantic. So maybe these are a couple of the spots where they could be reproducing, but there must be more for there to be less genetic deviation. So this is an ongoing research as well. And then along with all of that, there's blood sampling being carried out as well, which is another crazy thing to do on free-swimming wild whale sharks. And so far, only 6 of our scientists have managed to do this in free-swimming whale sharks. So there's my dad performing this amazing feat.
That's great, Sofia. Yeah, I mean, getting the blood sample, doing the ultrasounds, as both like the whale shark and the researcher has to be moving, sometimes fighting currents, as we know they are over there in Darwin and Wolf. But why do you think it's important to study the whale sharks?
Besides this, let me finish telling you a little bit about why we do the blood sampling analysis, and then I'll tell you a little bit about why all of this is so important. So
Great.
To go along with the ultrasounds and the DNA sampling, we're also looking at the blood chemistry and the hormone analysis to see if the hormone analysis will give us any indication if any of these females are pregnant. Then we're also doing general health studies. We want to know if the whale sharks that pass through the Galapagos are in good conditions. If they're not, why would this be? But also a very important study that we're doing from the blood hormones and the blood analysis is a stress analysis. So we're looking at the levels of lactic acid in their blood to see if maybe our research could be stressing them out, or also for future studies, we want to know if there is any kind of impact on tourism, and if not, then demonstrate how good, well-managed tourism practices and how important those well-managed tourism practices are for conservation purposes. So now on to your question, Josy, which is actually pretty much a very important question. It's the most important question you could ask. So I've been talking about all this research that we do on whale sharks, but why does it matter? Why do we spend all of our time and efforts and resources studying all these facts about whale sharks? Sure, we do it out of interest. Scientists are definitely in it for the interest. We like to know a little bit more about these animals, but that's definitely not the only reason why we do so. This is when we have to ask ourselves, what is the future of these animals? So in only 75 years, the global population of whale sharks has seen over a 65% decline. And that is just insane. In 3 generations, their population has dropped by over a half, which is why the IUCN Red List has listed them as endangered. And why their populations have gone down is mostly due to anthropogenic or human-caused activities. And these would be fishing, boat strikes, marine pollution, and climate change. Basically, some small coastal communities still use them for traditional uses, like for skins, meat, oil. However, most of these tend to be small scale. What worries me more are actually the industrial fishing fleets that we now have in our oceans. Basically, yeah, fishing at scales which are not sustainable in any way. But then they're not only catching the fish that they want to catch for commercial use, they're also catching fish like our whale sharks as bycatch, as incidental fisheries. Next, we have the fishing where people actually target whale sharks. And the reason why they target whale sharks is for specifically the shark fin trade. We know that one fin can go for over $20,000, which is absolutely insane. And we have discovered that they're doing this at a rate which is absolutely unsustainable. One single factory in Shanghai province was known to be processing over 600 of these sharks every single year. And for a species that grows so slowly, reproduces so slowly, they don't even reach reproductive maturity until they're 9 meters of length or about 30 years old, this is absolutely not sustainable. Other reasons why they're being fished is for trophies. People like their fins as trophies, or for their squalene oil. So this is something very important because a lot of people don't know that when they take these medicines for joint pain, they're actually collaborating and being a part of this shark catch. So whenever we use these, we have to make sure that the medicines do not say anything about shark oils, squalene oils, or elasmobranchs in their ingredient list, so we don't collaborate. But then there's another reason why whale sharks are super, super important, and it is because they serve as an umbrella species. What this means is that by protecting the whale shark, we're not only protecting this beautiful shark, but we're protecting every other animal that uses the same migratory routes, the same reproductive areas. So by protecting them, we would be protecting different species of sharks, turtles, fish, reefs, corals. And it's very important to do so through a charismatic animal such as the whale shark, because it's usually a lot easier to get people interested in an animal that we all love seeing underwater. So it's definitely important to use this type of species to then protect a lot more than just them.
That's amazing. And now what you say of how people is getting and using the sharks, and how conscious we have to be in the things that we eat, in the things that we buy. Yeah, it's incredible.
Absolutely.
I think right now it's a good time that our life has slowed down a little bit in order to see our habits, to see what are the products that we buy, like the pills that you're mentioning, without knowing we be contributing to be part of this illegal shark fishing. Maybe when you go to a restaurant, you're asking a dish like a soup that has sharks in it. So we have it. I think we're not late yet to realize and to be more of a conscious consumer in order not to destroy these amazing animals that are umbrella species, that just protecting them is like a domino effect. We're going to protect a whole bunch of other species. So we have some whale sharks that have been tagged by your project and shared with a story, and very meaningful names. I'm always impressed how well you pick those names when you decide to tag and name a specific shark. Can you tell us a little bit about Hope, Coco, and Nemo?
Absolutely, Josy. I'd absolutely love to tell you about these 3 very, very important whale sharks that have all been tagged with the Galapagos Whale Shark Project. So you might have all heard about them before. They were in the news, they were in the media. So if you follow any kind of conservation stories, you might have heard these names before. And these are whale sharks that are definitely helping us with our conservation practices. So let's start with Hope. Hope was a very important whale shark. She was tagged in September of 2019 and constantly followed all throughout until 2020. And during the times of the pandemic, when it all began and we were all stressed out, locked at home, and not necessarily having the greatest time, for us, for the team, it was wonderful seeing how this whale shark kept moving around and then started looping back towards the Galapagos Marine Reserve. You see, we had never received a full track of a whale shark leaving the reserve and then returning to the same spot as where we tagged her. And then Hope started looping around, and that's when we named her Hope, thinking she would be the first one to, give us this track. And she was our little bit of hope during pandemic times. However, in May of 2020, May of this year, she stopped transmitting. And at first we didn't think much about it, like whale sharks do not need to come to the surface of the ocean to breathe. So sometimes we won't see them for a month and a half, and it's absolutely normal. However, with her, we knew she was a very superficial diver and we were used to seeing her pop up frequently. So after 2 months of not having seen anything about her, we decided to look more closely at her last transmission time. So you'll see it here on the right. These were the last 32 minutes where she transmitted. And what we saw was this. So during the last 32 minutes of her transmission, one, her tag signal was very, very clear, which most likely means it's out of water. Two, she was in an area of very high fishing pressure. This is what you can see is her track overlaid with the fishing pressure. So she was in an area with a big industrial fishing fleet around. And three, she was traveling at a speed impossible for whale sharks. So the last 32 minutes of her transmission put her traveling at between 6 to 8 knots of speed, when a whale shark's maximum speed is of 3 knots, and they usually cruise around 1.5. So we knew that it couldn't be her moving this way. This could be satellite error, so we will never truly know what happened to Hope. But based on all the factors that we see, we can assume that she was probably caught, which was absolutely devastating for our team. You know, we care a lot about the species that we're studying. And it was amazing because her story, because she had a name, because she had a story, she became viral and people started creating these infographics and sharing her story on Instagram and Facebook and the media. And we started hearing songs being created about her and drawings being sketched of her. And she was a very, very inspiring story, you know, because Hope does not actually represent a single whale shark. She represents the hundreds of thousands of sharks, rays, turtles, sea lions that fall prey to this industrial fishing fleet and to other anthropogenic pressures and die every single year. So her story was actually one that touched a lot of people's hearts. And then this year, we were very, very lucky. We thought we weren't going to be able to go out to the fields because of pandemic, because of COVID. We thought we weren't going to be able to travel and do our yearly expedition. But my dad somehow made it work. You know, he was determined to get us out there. So in August of this year, we were able to go out for 2 weeks and tag another 10 whale sharks. And it's like they knew the type of data we needed, basically. The whale shark named Coco is one that we tagged on the 14th of August of this year. She was tagged in Darwin Island, and after her tagging, we followed her route closely, and she reached Isla del Cocos, which is another marine protected area in Costa Rica. And this is already an area that is under study, as you might have heard in Cesar Peñarera's webinar last week, is another area that is very important for conservation purposes because it's a migratory route for sea turtles and hammerhead sharks and Galapagos sharks and other species. But we had never seen or recorded a whale shark moving through this path. And Coco actually did this and gave us a perfect track, which once more highlights the importance of protecting these areas. As Todd Steiner from Turtle Island Restoration Network said, this exemplifies the need for a new type of marine protected area for highly migratory species like sharks and sea turtles. And this is definitely true. This is an area which is currently under observation to see if it is expanded as a protection area. And let's hope that data like the one that Coco gave us is used for this purpose. And finally, I'd love to tell you the story of Nemo. She is a very incredible whale shark named Nemo because of her lack of a pectoral fin on the side. And we tagged her also on the 14th of August. So yeah, same day as we tagged Coco. She did a return migration. So she gave us exactly what we were expecting to see with Hope. And unfortunately, we couldn't because of her loss. But we saw it with Nemo only a few months after this, and it is absolutely incredible. She left Darwin Island, started traveling towards mainland Ecuador, mainland Peru, and suddenly turned around, looped back, came home, went back to Darwin Island after 80 days of journey and around 1,600 kilometers, and has since been spotted just around the Galapagos Marine Reserve. So we're not quite sure what she's doing here, but this will definitely be very interesting data to analyze. And it's great to see how she uses this area, because this kind of data will also be used in showing the importance of expanding and creating new marine protected areas.
Sophie, anything that you mentioned before about the last webinar, we talked about the importance of making our marine reserve bigger or protecting a larger area between the different marine protectors that we have in the Galapagos Cocos. What do you think
I think we lost you, Josy.
about making it bigger? Are you?
I think we lost you for a minute, but I think you're back. I was very fortunate to listen to Cesar Peñarera's webinar last week. It was very, very good, and it talked exactly about the expansion of the Marine Reserve, or the current project about wanting to expand the current Marine Reserve. And I think this is of absolute essence. And the reason I believe this is because our world's oceans are the sustenance to life on this planet. So this is no longer about humans, ocean lovers, wanting to protect the ocean just because we care about it. This is actually of importance for the survival of our species. And only 4% of our world's oceans are protected. And in reality, only 2% of these areas are no-take areas. So that's such a small fraction that areas like the Galapagos have to be expanded for protection of these species and for protection of then commercial species which we live off of, because humans rely on these resources to be able to survive. And if we want to live in harmony with this earth and be able to use these resources sustainably, this is the kind of project we have to work on. So I'm very happy that our data from these whale sharks is able to help with this kind of idea as well. So that is mostly it. And before I take any kind of questions, I would like to just say thank you to all our collaborators, our donors. Without all of you, this project would not be possible, because this is definitely not the work of one person or even one small team. This is the work of a lot of people coming to work together as a collaboration. So thank you to all of you. And then thank you to all of you listening. I really hope you are interested. And if for some reason I'm not able to answer your questions today, please feel free to email me at the email below, or check out our website at galapagoswhaleshark.org.
Great, thank you so much, Sophia. That was wonderful, super interesting. We do have a lot of questions for you, so I want to jump into that. But in just a minute, I just want to remind folks watching, if you have a question for Sophia, you can submit those in your control panel under the questions field. All right, first question. A few people want to know if whale sharks are ever aggressive to the divers.
No, so there have been some interesting videos that have. Ooh, sorry. Yes, Josy? I think she's delayed. Galapagos internet is never wonderful. So back to the question. Whale sharks have not ever displayed any signs of aggression to divers. They actually would not be able to swallow a diver because of their very small esophagus size, regardless of their size of their mouths. And we have seen some viral videos in the internet where you see these whale sharks pursuing divers, but the only places where we see this happen are where whale sharks are being provisioned. So basically fishermen are actually feeding them to get them attracted to tourism, so that tourism can more closely relate to these species. But no, there have never been any types of attacks on humans.
Okay. And you may have mentioned this, but can you tell us again, how long is the average whale shark, male and female?
So this is really interesting, and I love that question, because when people first started seeing whale sharks in the Galapagos, they immediately assumed they were males. They saw these giant whale sharks that were not seen anywhere else in the world, and they were like, yeah, these guys have to be males. And then, well, so it's actually the opposite, you know, all the whale sharks we're seeing there are females, and apparently female whale sharks grow to be a lot larger than male whale sharks. On average, the male whale sharks that are seen around the world will be around, yeah, the adults will reach 12 meters long, while the females can reach a lot larger. They can reach up to 18 meters long. And it's more than likely due to the fact that they have to carry that amount of pups, I believe. That's just a personal hypothesis.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
So related to that, there were some questions regarding, you know, the baby mill sharks and motherhood, and related to the question about when you were talking about ultrasounds. People want to know if there's any data on whether or not whale sharks can hear the ultrasound, if that bothers them at all.
You know, I don't believe that they can hear it at all. Our whale sharks did seem to feel it. We are very close, when performing the ultrasounds, we're very close to sensitive areas of their body. So I believe it's an instinct of theirs, if they feel anything there, to move away from it. So that was definitely one of the challenges we faced, which is why it's also very important for us to take the blood samples of these same whale sharks that we ultrasound, because we want to make sure that any type of research that we're doing does not inflict any kind of stress on them. So from what we saw, they sometimes reacted to the ultrasounds, but when they did not present any levels of stress.
Great. And when a pup is born, is it on its own immediately? Does it stay with the mother? Is there any data on that? And has anyone ever seen a whale shark be born?
So no, nobody has actually seen a whale shark be born. That would be amazing. If you do see that, please film it and send it over. We'd love to see that. That is one of the greatest mysteries about this species, and something very important to know too for their conservation. We need to know where they're pupping so that we can protect these areas. But on to the other part of the question, these babies do not receive any type of parental care. Sharks do not take care of their pups. No shark species is known to do so. So we assume that whale sharks definitely wouldn't either. So yeah, that would be my answer to that question.
Great. So we have a couple students watching, and they want to know if you've ever considered attaching a camera to a whale shark to observe their behaviors.
Oh, I love that. Okay, and I love that there are students watching. Good luck with your studies. So yes, this has been done. It was done a couple years ago. The BBC provided us with a fin cam, and this, if you like to check it out, is on their BBC documentaries of Blue Planet 2. Some of the footage that was caught, and what was seen was incredible. So we could see the other shark species like silky sharks or Galapagos sharks were using whale sharks to rub against. So you would see them literally like using whale sharks as a slide. And what we believe is that they were doing this as some sort of cleaning behavior and using the rough skin of the whale sharks to clean their own skin off, like for any parasites. So it was very, very interesting what they caught from these cameras. What makes it difficult to use these cameras to see more about their behavior is, one, their deep diving behavior. We would lose those cameras in the depth. And two, the whale sharks that we cite specifically in the Galapagos, we see them for maybe a day, maximum two. So it would be very, very hard to get these cameras back. So that's why we don't use these more widely.
Gotcha. And how deep are you diving typically when you're going down to do your research?
Generally, our team will fall back, dive down to around 15 meters. And then what the team does is we all spread out to create kind of a bigger field of view. And some divers will head down to about 20 meters depth, others will stay up around 10 meters of depth, and then at varying distances. Because the whale sharks that we see can appear from 40 meters depth and then start heading up, or sometimes they'll appear at 5 meters depth and we'll have to be able to safely ascend to be able to catch up with them. So we never know where they're going to show up, and it's always exciting to see where they'll pop up next.
And when is a good time of year to be able to see the whale sharks in the Galapagos?
The Galapagos has a very specific seasonal aggregation. We see them specifically between June and December, and I would definitely recommend going in September. That's usually the month between August and September are the months that you can definitely guarantee a sighting, unless there's something going on with like some ocean phenomenon or some change in the environmental patterns. But otherwise, you'd more than likely see a whale shark during that time.
And so the final question I'll ask you today is, someone wants to know where they can donate.
That is a fantastic question as well. Thank you so much for considering that. Currently, the Galapagos Whale Shark Project is in the process of becoming its own organization. So hopefully through there now. And for the moment, please do contact us, write to us. We're working with other institutions where we can receive this type of donation for now.
All right, great. Well, it's almost the top of the hour, so I'm going to call it there with questions, and I'd love to hand it back over to both of you for closing comments. This was absolutely fascinating. I know our audience loved it. I've learned a lot, so I really appreciate you taking the time to present for us today. And Sophia, I'll hand it back to you first.
Thank you so much, Kendall. Thank you so much for this platform to be able to talk to all of you. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you here today. And as I mentioned, please do write. I love talking about whale sharks, as you can tell. So yeah, don't feel free to write if you have any other questions.
And Josy, are you with us?
Yes, finally I'm back again. Thank you. I had to switch connections to my phone. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, thank you so much again for a great webinar. Thank you, Sofia, for taking the time in order to put this together for our audience. And again, I will kindly ask to all of the people that joined the webinar of this week and last week, we highly need the international support of each one of you signing the petitions that we have in order to make it bigger, our marine reserve, because that will contribute big time with the protection of these iconic creatures. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Kendall, and happy holidays for all of you in the Northern Hemisphere.
Thank you, Josy. And thanks again, Sophia. This was really fascinating. And my thanks as well to everyone who joined us today. Just a reminder, this is our last webinar of the week due to the holidays here in the US. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone celebrating this week. We did record today's presentation. We'll have the replay available on our website soon. Look out for our Sunday e-news with the most current lineup, and we'll have that lineup as well on our website this afternoon. So with that, I'll conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Bye. Thank you.